Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are taking a really necessary look at something powerful, the gravitational pull of the past. Specifically, how these scripts, written for us like decades ago, can still dictate our relationship patterns now. We're digging into the core ideas of the book, Understanding Your Family of Origin. It offers a pretty clear roadmap, though sometimes uncomfortable, for gaining freedom from self-sabotage. So, if you often find yourself getting stuck in the same, destructive arguments, or maybe you repeat relationship choices that rationally you know are bad for you, well, this deep dive is about connecting those repetitive outcomes right back to their original source.
Right, and the central idea in this work really cuts through a lot of the usual self-help talk.
Yeah.
Particularly states that long after childhood events are, technically over, they continue to dominate our relationships, our behavior. The past, as the book puts it, is perpetual. It's always kind of with us. And a lot of people resist this. They argue, well, I don't consciously remember the pain, or the influence must be gone, or just, I got over it.
That's a really strong claim, though, because most contemporary self-help seems focused entirely on the future, doesn't it? Changing habits, reframing thoughts. Are you saying there's almost no way to truly change these really destructive adult patterns without first mapping out the emotional dynamics of the past?
Precisely. That's exactly it. The authors insist that those unresolved hurts and the unconscious adaptations we made back then, what they call childhood trash or these foundational wounds, those are the actual root causes of the conflicts we're having right now. So if you've got these repetitive destructive cycles in your adult life, it likely means a primal story is, well, running the show. And you really have to look backward to get some control.
Okay, that sets our mission perfectly then. Let's unpack that crucial connection between the unresolved childhood pain, what the book calls our primal stories, and the roles we end up playing in our adult lives.
Yeah, let's start right there. So primal stories. These are those initial experiences, often tied to like fear or pain, or maybe the threat of abandonment. Experiences that solidify our fundamental beliefs about ourselves. It might be the first time you realized the world wasn't totally safe, or the first time you're asked to fundamentally change who you were just to, secure love or approval.
And we see this so clearly in the author's own story that's shared in the source material. After her parents' really chaotic conflict and divorce when she was 5, she talks about how that fear created a kind of safety trauma, and that threat immediately forced her into a necessary functional role. She became the mediator, right? The perfect actor who always had to seem fine, always said, "I'm fine." And she did this specifically to avoid burdening her overwhelmed parents. That role wasn't a conscious choice. It was like an unconscious necessity to keep the whole family system from completely collapsing on her, even if playing that role was actually devastating to her, her inner self.
Exactly. And that adaptation, that's the core mechanism of childhood survival. Children are incredibly masterful observers. When the family system is strained under pressure, they adopt these roles, like maybe the caretaker, always looking after others, or the perfect achiever, trying to get validation through success, or the secret keeper. They take on these roles because they believe deep down that this role is essential to maintaining safety or securing whatever conditional love is available. They aren't choosing it freely. They're essentially forced into it by the circumstances.
And then the role just sticks. And maybe you're listening now and you kind of recognize your own persistent adult role that started way back in childhood. Are you the compulsive people pleaser?
Yeah.
Always putting others first? Or the one who always minimizes your own needs in a relationship? Or maybe that hyper-responsible perfectionist at work? That adult role is almost certainly a direct descendant of that original primal story. Okay, so if we shift from the role itself to the sort of internal choice that cemented it, this is where we hit what feels like the most impactful concept in the book, this ultimate trade-off, trading authenticity for attachment.
Yes, this defines that core, often really painful internal conflict. See, attachment, being loved, chosen, prioritized, that's non-negotiable for a child's survival. They must secure it, period. But authenticity, the freedom to live and feel fully, to show your whole real self, that's essential for our core spiritual and emotional existence, our being. The book actually cites the trauma expert Gabor Mate here. He emphasizes that when authenticity threatens attachment, attachment always defeats authenticity. It has to, for survival. And that necessary survival instinct means we learn to change ourselves. We might reduce our true feelings, hide parts of ourselves, or exaggerate other traits, all to secure that necessary approval and connection from our caregivers.
Wow, and the long-term emotional damage of making that trade, it sounds profound because every time we perform that role to get love, it's like a small betrayal of ourselves, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that repeated pattern, sacrificing who we really are just for approval, it leads to an adult who feels deeply insecure, who lacks that foundational confidence, and who struggles profoundly to show their true, vulnerable self, even in a safe relationship. It's like they almost don't know who they are without the role anymore. Okay, to make this less abstract, maybe we can look at the case study the book uses, Natasha. She really personifies the devastating results of sacrificing authenticity. So, Natasha's 38, she's highly successful professionally, engaged to a seemingly great partner, Clyde. Her stated problem when she sought help was kind of vague, just relationship conflict, but the reality was she was actively sabotaging the relationship.
Right. And when she first started exploring this, there was immense resistance. Natasha kept insisting her childhood was wonderful. She frequently minimized any pain, saying things like, oh, others had it much worse. This is a defense mechanism the source material calls trauma comparison or idealization. It's basically a way of protecting the family story, the narrative, from scrutiny, and crucially, avoiding the confrontation with actual pain. But the root trauma eventually came out. When she was 15, Natasha accidentally found emails detailing her father's long-term affair. And then her father leveraged her fear, her affection for him, and made her promise never to tell her mother. That single event instantly forced her into this devastating role, the secret keeper, and it utterly destroyed her foundational trust in her closest relationship, her father.
Oh, wow. So that moment basically solidified her primal story. If the person closest to me, my rock, is capable of this huge long-term deceit, then deceit is just inevitable in close relationships. So fast forward to her relationship with Clyde. Natasha's deep-seated unconscious fear that Clyde would deceive her led her to repeatedly push him away, where she was constantly like waiting for the other shoe to drop, anticipating betrayal. So she was unknowingly repeating the trauma, but not by being betrayed again. Instead, it was through preemptive destruction and avoidance. Is that right? Like she'd break the relationship first or create fights, essentially fulfilling her own original traumatic script that the people you rely on will inevitably hurt you. That perpetual past was just demanding to be heard, and she responded by making sure the betrayal happened, but on her terms this time.
Natasha's case highlights exactly how unresolved trauma operates. It doesn't just vanish with time. It seeks expression. It manifests in destructive behavior patterns. And often this looks like emotional overreaction, getting explosively angry over something minor. It's not really about the small slight itself. It's because that small slight feels identical to a deeper, decades-old wound that's being activated in that moment. It also shows up as what the book calls functional dysfunction. This is where we unconsciously choose partners or maybe situations that consistently reinforce the original traumatic dynamic. It's not because we want pain, obviously. It's because that painful pattern feels tragically familiar, predictable even. So if your primal story is that you're not prioritized, you might unconsciously find yourself in situations where you're consistently ignored or sidelined. It feels normal in a sad way.
It's really important, though, to acknowledge how hard this process can be. Facing your family of origin, it can feel intensely difficult. It might even feel like a profound betrayal of the people who raised you. But the book advocates for a compassionate but really honest lens. Healing requires recognizing that, yes, family members probably did the best they could, but importantly, still could not do better in terms of meeting our core needs.
Absolutely. And the path to genuine healing, it really starts when we stop minimizing, when we stop justifying or intellectualizing those past experiences away. We have to engage in what's essentially a four-part process to make real change happen. We have to name it, admit it, feel it, and recognize the true influence of that family system. It's really the only way to escape that powerful emotional gravitational pull of the old patterns.
Okay, so the book formalizes this into a four-step model for making lasting change. What are those steps?
Yeah, it's framed as a sort of native healing practice. The first step is naming the trauma. So, like Natasha identifying hers as trust trauma, or maybe it's priority trauma or value trauma, giving it a name. Second is witnessing and respecting the trauma. This means intentionally seeing your younger self, the one who actually experienced the pain, and truly honoring their suffering, not dismissing it. Third is grieving the loss. And this is crucial. Grieving the authentic self that had to be sacrificed for attachment, for survival. Grieving what you lost back then. And then finally, the critical fourth step, shifting to new behaviors. This means consciously choosing an intentional, different response the moment that old, destructive pattern gets triggered.
Right, that last step, shifting, that feels like the most crucial one for someone listening right now. So when you notice that familiar destructive pattern, or maybe that emotional overreaction starting to bubble up, perhaps a disproportionate surge of fear or anger, the book advises you just pause. Pause for a quick self-diagnosis. You just pause, take a breath, and ask yourself two key questions. Is this situation familiar? When did I first feel this way?
Hmm.
And then follow it with, what past experience is being activated right now? Whoa. That pause, that ability to connect the present feeling back to the primal story, that's the exact moment where choice becomes possible. It's the starting point for the shift.
Exactly. And the shift itself, it doesn't need to be massive or dramatic initially. It just needs to be different from the old pattern. So for instance, if your old pattern is to, say, yell and catastrophize when your partner is late, the shift isn't necessarily just to stay completely silent. That might just be suppression. The shift is recognizing, wait, this intense feeling. It isn't just about them being late. This is that activated fear of abandonment I felt when I was 8. And then instead of yelling, maybe you choose to state your internal feelings softly, like, I'm feeling a really big surge of fear right now that I'm not safe or important. That is the new behavior. That's the shift. And making that choice, it has generational consequences. It really does. The book leaves us with this incredibly powerful thought. Family dysfunction gets passed down like a wildfire, consuming everything, unless someone has the courage to face the flame. The journey of healing yourself right now, today, it's truly the most significant step you can take, not just for you, but also to heal those who came before you, in a way, and definitely to protect those who come after.
Wow. It really is a brave and incredibly significant step towards self-discovery. And if you recognize these patterns in yourself while listening, just know that facing that flame, as the book puts it, is entirely possible. It takes courage, but it's possible. Thank you so much for diving deep with us today.